1372 show, the QB and EOG. TJ Downing here from the New Start Media Studios, joined by Alex Golesh, offensive coordinator and tight ends coach for the Tennessee Volunteers. My man, before we start talking some football, talking about your team now and some of our history, I noticed following you on social media today, we're talking about our kids. You're chasing championships in the SEC. Your daughter just won a championship the other day, didn't she?
Yeah, man, they won the I don't even know what the league actually is. It's a East Tennessee private school basketball league. So I don't know how that carries over to much of anything, but it's she was geeked and I was here with uh, a junior day and some official visits. So I just got pictures and play by play from my wife on that part of it. But yeah, man, it's you missed some of that, but it's all part of it and they've grown up in it and they know that. So
Yeah, you've kind of done the travel throughout your career, and as we look back, how you and I first met, going all the way back to 2004, 2005 at Ohio State, when you were starting out as just a student assistant, going into that GA type of role. Um, how much of that stuff through coming up on 20 years now, almost you've been in collegiate football, that base and foundation that you first got there in those early 2000s, you kind of carry with you that stuff that you would have learned under Coach Haycock and D'Antonio and Coach Tressel. I mean, have those things kind of stuck with you?
man, stuck would be an understatement. You know, those are the guys that I saw do it the right way, and I really, you know, being able to be around it and at an elite level like that, and elite players, kind of was always the drive to get to that point at some point. But I think what I learned from those guys, from like you said, Coach Haycock to Coach Tressel to Coach Daniels and Coach Hazel and all those guys at that time was, man, just do a good job at your job. And you know, Coach Haycock at the time would, if I ever stepped out of line, would put me back in my place. But there was such a culture of young guys learning at that place, and the players, you and you know, those guys that were all my age, Bobby and AJ and Ryan Hamby, and you know, there was such an elite group of young guys that were wanted to learn, that wanted to get better, that treated young coaches, GAs, extremely well. I think there was a purpose there. There was a goal in mind, and nobody was bigger than the program. And I just learned how to work, man. I learned that you wanna win games. You got to be the first one in, last one out, and there's always something to do. Coach Haycock would always tell me there's always something to do, right? There's always another game to watch or another cut up to make or another meeting you can have with a player to help us get ready for Saturday. And just learned how to work. And that was an incredibly hardworking group of men. And I wanted to at some point get to that level and obviously have had some really cool stops and have worked with some really good people. But that really laid the foundation for how to work, how to treat people, having an attitude of gratitude and being grateful for what you have, and honestly teaching young people that it is more than football in a lot of ways, and it was a fascinating experience there, and obviously gave me some opportunities to move on and go grow at other places, and um, now here at Tennessee.
So you look at that journey, so to say. It starts there at Ohio State, just on the foundation level for you, and you make those stops at Toledo, Illinois, Iowa State, Central Florida, gets you there to Tennessee now. Um, Along the way, over the past couple weeks, as you and I have started to catch up recruiting, you're out there on the trail, you're trying to find your guys as you just got done your first season at Tennessee, and kind of get guys that fit your system, what you want to do. um, but recruiting seems to be a huge theme nationally now, and as you go back to Toledo, when you first really got your hands around it, and you were able to form, back to back number one recruiting classes, just talk about how important it is. I mean, get not only getting out there and getting these kids that are coming out of high school, but even within your own team now with some transfer portal stuff.
Man, TJ, it's the whole thing has really just evolved and evolved and evolved. I think it's become um, there's probably a lot of different um, different words you can use to describe what it's become, but it's become in a lot of ways really, really crazy. I think when we first started, you think of like you coming out and getting recruited. It was very much you build a relationship and you take visits and you go through your junior year and people come and see you in the spring and people make decisions, you make decisions, and even early commitments back then were really, really a thing of that what didn't exist. Guys would go through their senior year, then they would take official visits and make a decision. And I think where it's really, really drastically changed is the when you combined NIL and transfer portal at the same time at this level. I think it's really there's so many unknowns still, but I think it's really become um, I feel like less about relationships and more about other things at this point. But I do think that the main objective, going back to whether we were at Toledo or Illinois or Iowa State, I don't think it really matters. I think it does still come down to finding people that fit, finding young guys that fit. Obviously, the film has to jump out at you, or if the physical attributes have to jump out at you. That's probably the difference between being in the MAC and then being in the SEC or being in the Big Ten. The physical attributes have to match. The film has to match the guys you're playing against every week. That part has changed in terms of the caliber of player you're looking for, just in terms of where you are.
What you guys were able
Go
to
ahead.
do, what you guys were able to do in Ames, so you think about, you talk about the coaching, kind of not a carousel, but it can be, you find a group of guys that work well together, and whether you go somewhere or not, you look at what Mount Union has been able to do with Coach Candle and Coach Campbell as well. Those guys going on to have the success there, and you guys built something there in 2015, 16, 17 in Ames, where you put Iowa State as competitive as they've ever been. But the recruiting, getting guys to come out to Ames, I mean, there's some strategy that really goes into that, right?
Yeah, it's certainly a lot harder than driving down 71 to Columbus.
Right.
And I think that job was so unique in so many ways because you talk about Matt Campbell, who is a Perry grad and got a lot of pride in Northeast Ohio and especially Stark County there. Um, he hired a bunch of guys that he truly trusted. Most of them are Ohio guys that he trusted, guys that he knew would have his back and sell his vision. And I think just evidence that if you can give more of yourself than you take from the whole, we were able to find a bunch of guys like that, a bunch of players like that. And early on, we didn't get a whole lot of 4 stars and 5 stars to come to Ames. But what we did was we sold ourselves, we sold our staff, we sold what we were building. And I think when you truly love the guys you work with, specifically the guy you work for, it's a lot easier to sell. It's just like being in sales. If you believe in the product, it's a lot easier to sell it. And we were able to sell it to some guys that we probably shouldn't have gotten. We got lucky with some guys that we profiled in terms of the high school program they were coming from, the high school coach. How did they learn to work? What's their family structure like? Can they survive in Ames, Iowa? Right? You got to be a different dude to. It's kind of out there now. We
Right.
tell everybody we're right up the road from Des Moines, Iowa, but we're an hour from Des Moines, and so it's a little bit harder to sell. But I think we had a lot of relationships. The guys you talk about guys that really turned our program early. David Montgomery, who's a Mount Healthy kid in Cincinnati. Deshaunte Jones, who was a Coleraine kid. Like, you talk about great programs and great high school coaches. Mike Rose, who for them was a first team All-American for 2 years at linebacker, is a Cleveland kid. You were able to go find those guys and guys that really turned the culture of the program. And culture is a really overused word in recruiting, but the culture there at the time I was there was extremely strong. And those guys loved each other. They loved the staff, and they played for each other. But yeah, I mean, you talk about strategy. You better bring them out in June when the sun's out in Ames,
Right.
Iowa, right? It's a little bit different, and you got to be really intentional in who you recruit and where you put your resources, and we chose to put our resources in the Midwest, and it worked out for us there. But yeah, absolutely, strategy is everything, and targeting guys that you maybe people don't think you can get, but went out and built relationships and sold ourselves, and were able to get a turn.
You talked about that staff, and one of those guys that you worked alongside, a guy like Jeff Myers, who's a Massillon guy, spent his time playing his collegiate ball at Toledo. I thought interesting, when you talk about getting the right players in there, but also kind of using your system and what you do, obviously with the tight ends. And in what, 2015, I think they threw to the tight end like 5 times. And by 2019, here last year, there, you dropped it into the tight end 75 times. And you know, uh, talk just a little bit about philosophy before we start to break down, what you guys have done at Tennessee. But, spread offenses, things have developed. I mean, really, where you did cut your teeth back there in the early 2000s was learning that power run game, pulling the guards, working that spread in there when you have those guys that can stretch the field. Um, but the tight end, we know how deadly of a weapon he can be. The one guy that's unaccounted for, those mismatches or matchups that you look at. I mean, just talk about your system and how that's kind of allowed you to grow as a coach.
Yeah, I think when we got to Iowa State, we talked about, and how are we going to be different? You know, um, Especially in the Big 12 at the time, where it was spread offense was king, and a bunch of skill, especially teams like Texas and Oklahoma and Baylor and TCU. We wanted to be different. How can you be different? And I think that's the key to wherever you are. How can you be different than everybody you're playing? If you do what everybody else is doing, I think it's obviously easier to defend when you're talking about offensive football. And at Iowa State, we said offensively, what kind of guys can we get? What kind of bodies can we get? Well, you can get old linemen in Iowa, you can get old linemen in the Midwest, and you can get tight ends. And we went out and said we want tight ends that are 6'6" or taller, and can run like this, and can be absolute matchups, like you said, on linebackers, on safeties, and that's how we chose to build it. And when you combine that and tempo with it, and a power run game or a vertical run game, we thought that was our advantage to being different. When I went to UCF, what can you get? Well, you can get skill guys, right? You're right in the heart of the best skill in the entire country, right in Florida and Georgia, and we continue to evolve, and we were more based on skill players and creating matchups, and Coach Heupel had the foundation of a system in place there where we use the tempo and using space on the perimeter. We started getting to that at Iowa State as I was leaving, and then you come to Tennessee. So how are you different here? Well, this is the ninth winningest program in the history of college football, and second winningest program in SEC history. And so, man, oh man, that you feel like you can get skill guys, you can get linemen, you can kind of get it all. And so where we've chosen to be different is being able to use tempo as our identity. It's not a tool anymore, where I felt like at Iowa State it was a tool in a lot of ways. Here it truly is our identity. And combining using tempo with spacing and being able to play in wide splits and creating one-on-one matchups in space, making it hard for defenses to disguise what they do, and kind of dumbing down defenses, and using the tight end. We've got some good players here. We're recruiting well at that spot, using the tight end now with tempo, with space, to create one-on-one matchups now with a ton more space. So kind of evolved and grown, and I think you have to, as you get to a new place, you got to figure out, man, what kind of guys can we get? And you feel like at a place like Tennessee, similar to a place like Ohio State, where you should be able to get the best players in the country. And now, what do we want to be? How do we want to be different? Well, in the SEC, used to be a power running offensive league. It's become more of a spread league now. You look at the two teams that played for a national title. One was spread and used tempo. The other one was a little bit more pro style, but both used tight ends in a bunch of different ways to create matchups. And And it's kind of evolving that way in the SEC as well.
At CH Vallis and Associates, we've been proudly serving the greater Stark County community for over 78 years. Locally owned, we cover your home, auto, business, and life insurance along with your group benefits. Our partnership with auto owners has allowed us to span not only Ohio, but throughout the entire country. Did you know that Auto Owners, an A++ rated company by AM Best and a Fortune 500 company, has ranked CH Vallis and Associates a top 10 insurance agency in the state of Ohio? From your basic home and auto needs to insuring some of the largest companies in America, there's a reason people choose CH Vallis and Associates and Auto Owners. Our dedication and passion for our clients and their coverage is part of our commitment to excellence. For all your insurance coverage needs, there's only one call to make, and that's CH Vallis and Associates, located at 1302 South Main Street in North Canton. Contact us at 330-494-2776 today and see the difference in customer satisfaction.
1372 show, the QB and the OG TJ Downing here inside of the new Stark Media Studios. Shout out to some of our partners, Hall of Fame Village, powered by Johnson Controls. We'll be back out there next Monday. We'll probably have the quarterback, the College Football Hall of Famer, QB1 around here, Jim Ballard, back with us. Shout out to him, the NFL Alumni Association, and also CH Vallis and Associates over at 1302 South Main Street, North Canton. And our partners up at the Cigar Lodge, located right next to the prestigious Firestone Country Club. Joined today by Alex Golesh, offensive coordinator, tight ends coach for the Tennessee Volunteers. You just mentioned Josh Heupel, and I always will remember him because as I was kind of cutting my teeth in high school, I remember back to watch that Oklahoma national championship game and the dominance that he had in 2000, and watching him along with Coach Bob Stoops knock off Florida State, win the title, and he's gone on to have a great coaching career. He saw something in you as he was down there at Central Florida building that program to want to bring you away from what you were doing, and that's a credit to the success that you've had. How does that meeting go at first? When most people want to talk about the recruiting of players, how does that meeting go? And is it just a one day Josh Heupel gives you a call, says, "Hey man, you want to come down here and be my OC at Central Florida?" And how has that relationship between you and him kind of evolved?
Yeah, so just like any job in our profession, you genuinely have mutual friends, and your name pops up. Now, I'd run into Josh over the years, going back to when he was at Oklahoma, recruiting Dallas. I kind of cut my teeth recruiting the DFW area, and so we had run into each other a bunch, and I think when he was looking for an OC, when he lost his. I knew the O-line coach at UCF. We had GA'd together going back to Oklahoma State in 2008, and I think he threw my name out there. Josh knew who I was. I think he. I think what Josh does an incredible job of is every offseason, he's very, very honest with, man, what do we do well? What do we not do well? And then going and finding people that can help in the areas where we're not doing well, and they had kind of gotten away from using tight ends. They were, when I got there, they were the number 2 offense in the country in 2019, and or I guess it would have been 2019. Number 2 offense in the country. We're not great on third down. We're not great in the red zone, meaning situational football. Just we're not very good. It gotten away from tight ends. It gotten away from some things, and you know he wanted to find somebody that ran something similar football wise, but also had a different perspective on it. You can go out and hire somebody from a similar system, or you can go out and hire somebody that'll come in and look at it very objectively, say, man, that doesn't make any sense. That does. And, so he had reached out to me, said, man, I keep hearing your name, keeps getting thrown around. Can we sit down and talk? So we were getting ready to play Notre Dame at Iowa State in the Camping World Bowl, which at that point had been the biggest game in the history of the program. And to be honest with you, I kind of said, man, like, I'm totally committed to being here. I, at that time, was totally committed to being with Matt and continue to build that program at Iowa State. And although I was really intrigued in taking the next step for myself in my career, and I felt like I was at that point ready to be a coordinator. And so we had talked briefly early in December, and he said, man, I can respect that. You obviously you have a job, you're getting ready for a huge game. And it so happened to be that we got on the plane to go down to Orlando to play Notre Dame, and it was like 2 degrees leaving Ames. and we get we get to Orlando and it's 84, and we went through that week, and my wife, even, who is a huge fan of the Campbells, and really we had a really neat offensive staff there at Iowa State. She's like, man, this isn't so bad down here. The kiddos were in the pool all week, and we're at
84 ain't
Disney World.
bad.
No, 84 ain't bad in December, and she's like, hey, maybe we should just hear him out here for a second. And we had talked the week of the bowl game. I said, Coach, if you can give me a couple of days to get through the bowl game, and I feel like I'm an intelligent dude, but I can't focus on two things at once like that. And man, he waited from the beginning of December until we played, whatever it was, January 1st or December 31st, and the day after the game, he's like, man, can you give me an hour to sit down and talk with you and your wife? And actually met with him and his wife and their kids, and my kids were there too. And we sat at a Panera for 2 hours and talked and walked out of there. And my wife basically said, hey, if you're going to leave Matt for anybody, that's a guy I would leave for. So I got her blessing, and we took the job that night. And obviously, we had a good year offensively at UCF. Finished, I think, maybe fourth in the country in offense, and improved in all those areas that he felt like we needed to improve in. And Coach got an opportunity to be the head coach here at Tennessee. And our relationship has been really, really good. He's an offensive guy. He has a ton of incredible insight, highly, highly intelligent. And for him, this is his second time being a head coach now. And I think just like anything you do, you are learning as you go. You kind of make mistakes as you go. And we took over a really interesting situation here. We took it over late January. Previous staff had gotten let go among some NCAA stuff. And it was a really, really tough job. It was right at the beginning of the transfer portal. And so there was a ton going on, and he took it and hit the ground running. He's done a really, really good job of kind of unifying the team, unifying the community. And obviously won 7 games our first year. We recruited extremely well, and the future is really bright. But this town is incredible. For they'll put 103,000 in that stadium every week. They do the same in basketball. They understand the tradition. The expectations are extremely high, and Josh has done a really good job of handling that part of it.
Yeah, I saw that you were out there at a Tennessee basketball game, that you've been out there supporting them a little bit. They're a top 25 ranked team. Took a loss the other night to the Texas Longhorns, but some good basketball, a great vibe on campus that you talked about. For me, coming out of high school, Tennessee was the only school that recruited me in the SEC. Philip Fulmer was an offensive line guy, and that just to me was like, it was it for me. If I was going to do anything south of Ohio, it was going to be the Tennessee Volunteers, and always attracted to the colors and the checkered end zones in the back of Neyland Stadium. I mean, that's there's few stadiums, as you mentioned, that can pack 100,000 plus. We come from a place in the Horseshoe that can do that, to being there. Just talk about the overall vibe. You mentioned the community, but through campus, you and I both know that the heartbeat of the campus, when the sports teams are alive and they're thriving, you can just tell. That if there's success in the air, it starts right there at the epicenter of campus.
Yeah, the first time you got a chance to walk out and see that stadium, you kind of walk in and you're kind of in awe. You think I think what makes a place is the guys that have come before and have built it to what it is. You walk out on that field and you're like, man, Peyton Manning played here, Reggie White played here, and more recently, Alvin Kamara and Cardell Patterson, and these guys that are, Hall of Famers or future Hall of Famers, and you look at the checkered end zones and you just kind of look around and you kind of count your blessings a little bit in terms of what this place is and what it has been and what it can be. I think anything you want to do in college football has been done here. I think it's a little bit different when you're selling a pipe dream in a lot of ways. Man, it hasn't been done, but we're going to be the first to do it. It's been done here. And so you kind of look around and you're like, man, like every day you come to work, you get to work at a place like this. You really do count your blessings in so many ways. And like you said, when football is good, when basketball is good, baseball is incredible here. They just played in the World Series. There's an attraction of students to come into games, and there's just this incredible vibe. And Knoxville is a unique place because it's not a college town. It's different than a lot of places in the SEC. It's a bigger city. There's a downtown area. It's a beautiful area right at the foothills of the Smoky Mountains. You walk out every day and you see the Smokies in the background. It really is a pretty place. You got the Tennessee River that runs through it. There's boats out there. It's really a neat place. And the pageantry of college football and what it is really is right here, right in Knoxville. And so, like you said, us growing up, it was Ohio State, it was Michigan, it was Notre Dame, and it was Tennessee and Florida. And you had USC with the run there, but like for us and on this side of the Mississippi River, it was Tennessee and Florida in the Southeast that ran college football for a really long time. And just to be here and running the offense and being a small part of what we do and what we build, it, like I said, it's a really humbling experience every day to come into work and work with these guys of this caliber and knowing that everybody's goals are kind of the same. Everybody's goal is to continue to play in the National Football League. And when you can sell guys at every position, like at my position, Jason Witten played here. You look at one of the best to do it of all time. It's like, holy smokes. I talked to Jason a week after I got here, and he's like, man, can we just get Tennessee football back? And those guys are just dying for that success. And it really is, like I said, it's a humbling and really a huge blessing, but a humbling feeling to be able to come to work every day and go to work here.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like the same words that Coach Trask and Jim Bowman used to tell us, inside of that locker room. It just count your blessings and know how many people would like to be in your seat and how thankful you are. And it's pretty cool hearing about some of those guys. We actually had one of the legendary Vols, Chuck Smith, Dr. Rush, came on our show. Legendary Atlanta Falcon, was talking to him about some different things he does with the NFL Alumni Academy, which is right in on the grounds of the Hall of Fame Village, powered by Johnson Controls. And was able to do a show the other day, man coverage, with Nate Schmidt and Rico McCoy. Rico, I think, is a 3-time All SEC guy for you. How have those guys kind of rallied around? You mentioned there were some NCAA issues before you guys came in and took over the program. Getting those calls from Witten, seeing the guys show up in the building, that's got to be not only special for the kids, for the young men on your team, but for you coaches to know that those guys have your back.
Yeah, like we spent 2 days with Peyton Manning in May, and you sit in a room with Peyton, and really the first question that I asked, like, Peyton, why did you come here? Like, your dad played at Ole Miss and brother went to Ole Miss, and why would you come to Knoxville and essentially pave your own path? And he was really honest. He said, man, like, I came to campus on a visit and I just felt this vibe from the community that this is the place I got to be. And I think it's so interesting to hear that there is a vibe here of the greats that have come before, the hunger to be elite, from a football program perspective, and every single person that came through here, from Peyton to, like you said, Jason Witten, to Al Wilson, to Alvin Kamara was here for the spring game, and all they want is to have an exciting brand of football and to be competitive in the games that it really matters. And they all say the same thing. When you look at a program like ours, where we had 2 head coaches here for 30 some years, in Johnny Majors and Phil Fulmer, and then over the last 10, 11 years, it's just been a revolving door. There's been 4 head coaches, and we're the 5th staff, and there just hasn't been consistency. There hasn't been consistency with a message. There hasn't been consistency in recruiting. There hasn't been consistency with anything that's been going on. And these people are just so hungry for a consistent message, a consistent product on the football field. And right now it feels like we've given them that, an exciting brand of offense, and been able to go score points on pretty much everybody we've played. And there's like a sense of excitement. Obviously you got to continue to roll with it. And at the end of the day, you want to build a program that's sustainable, regardless of who the offensive coordinator is, who the defensive coordinator is, who the players are. You want a consistent, sustainable program. And the only way you can sustain success is if you actually build a program from the ground up and have standards and values and expectations. And the expectations here are as great as anywhere in the country. But the consistency of the leadership, the consistency of the coaching, it all starts at the top with the chancellor and the athletic director, and obviously having enough time to build a program the right way. And I think a little bit of what's gone on here is nobody's really had enough time to truly build a program, and hopefully that's us, and hopefully that's our staff.
Alex Golesh joining us on the 1372 show, the QB and the OG. Appreciate you taking time out, my man, to talk a little bit about your history, your coaching journey, but now what's led you to Tennessee, and what you guys have been able to do there. This past year, you come in, you guys go 7-6, 4-4 in the conference. I mean, you mentioned a team like Ole Miss. You know that you're going to have to line up against the Floridas and the Alabamas and the Georgias. The messages that you guys are delivering on a daily basis to your players, saying, hey, listen, if we want to do this thing the way we want to, building the culture and the program, it has to go through beating those teams. Not an easy task, right?
No, you talk about on our side, you got Georgia and you got Florida, and Missouri is getting better, and South Carolina is getting better, and Kentucky has been really consistent with Coach Stoops, another Northeast Ohio guy. They've done a really good job of building a sustainable program. Again, a guy that got enough time to build it the right way, and has been able to sustain success at Kentucky. So, and then our crossover is Alabama every year, which is the big rivalry game, and so and then you roll through the crossovers on the other side. We happen to get Ole Miss and their best season last year in the history of their program, and we get to go down to Death Valley this year and play LSU in a crossover. So there's very few weeks off where you're like, man, you go into Saturday and you just feel great about where you're at, but that's what you want. You want to be able to go play the Floridas and the Georgias and the Bamas and compete against the best. And I think from a recruiting side, that's part of it, right? Like you're coming to a place that's won those games in the past, and two, a place where you can go play against the best in college football right now. And so that's a big recruiting pitch, and guys that are bought into helping turn a program, flip a program, and then go play against the best on Saturday nights. It really is an incredible experience. But at whatever point, right, when you sustain a winning culture and a winning program, you got to go beat those teams. And I think wins and losses are what we're all judged on and what we're all evaluated on. But you win those games in your weekly process and your process in the off season. And we're about to start with our guys this week, our January, February off season program. And this, TJ, that's when you win games.
Yep.
And those are the dark days of college football where there really is no light at the end of the tunnel yet. You just got to go to work. And so you want to recruit guys that love that part of it, that love the grind part of it. And the 12 Saturdays in the fall are just an end result of the process that you build.
As you put a little bit of shine on some of your guys coming back here, getting ready to start that process, I think two of the things that really stick out when you're trying to flip that program, you go over 500, you go 500 within your conference, you establish a base, and you finish with the bowl game. You guys playing the Music City Bowl, probably one of the more exciting bowl games this past bowl season. It was a 48-45 OT loss to Purdue, but you go back to some of your Big Ten roots, you look at the excitement just from your guys coming into this next second year of your culture, your building of the program. How have those guys really who have stepped out in the front of some of the leaders that have just kind of taken this thing by the horns?
Yeah, I think it all starts with our quarterback and Hendon Hooker, and Hendon is a young guy that was a transfer from Virginia Tech that started out the year as the backup, and came in our third game and became, I want to say, the most efficient passer in the country. For us, led our offense to however many records we set, and set a standard. Man, we're a top 10 offense, and obviously the goal is to be the best offense in the country, but it starts with him, and he's going to be one of the best quarterbacks in the country. He was a year ago. And football at this point, if you have a quarterback, you got a chance to win every game. And so we feel like we got one of the best in the country, and and an incredible young guy, an incredible leader going into his 6th year of college. So he's a vet. He's been through it, has done it, and has faced a bunch of adversity. And we feel really good with him leading our team. Cedric Tillman was an all SEC wideout for us, and Cedric had a big year, went over 1,000. And I think really his first year as a starter, I think his future is really, really bright, and we're going to lean on him really, really heavily. And, we return 4 out of the 5 guys up front. We return our starting tailback. And so I think when you got a base with the quarterback and your guys up front and an elite level receiver, you got a chance to be as good as anybody. And so that's what we're building it around. We got some young guys that have got to step up and that haven't played yet that'll have to play for us. But I think we've got a really, really good foundation. We've got an excitement in our locker room. We've got an excitement level. We had our first team meeting last Sunday, and the guys were just excited to get back and get going. And there's just a rejuvenated level of energy around the program, which feel like will give us a chance here in the fall.
Coach, appreciate you taking time out today to join us on the 1372 show, the QB and EOG. I'm going to let you get back to it. We're going to catch up with you down the line and continue to follow your guys' success.